Well, Susan, we continue our series on everything about NetSuite accounting. Susan's our head of controller here at Fusion CPA, and we're going to be talking about NetSuite accounting and the pitfalls to avoid, the things to do, and the things not to do. So today, Susan, I want to dive into the top 5 mistakes that we see clients make when implementing and using NetSuite.
I would say the number one issue is not being ready.
What do you mean by that?
So there's there's some work to do before you go live on NetSuite, and your NetSuite implementation team will tell you the work that needs to be done. But the key is to listen. So your data coming out of your old system needs to be cleaned up. There needs to be some thought given to what data looks like in your existing system and what data may look like in NetSuite. And it may not be a one-to-one. You might be having a chart of accounts that you're splitting into 2 different chart of accounts. You might be going the other way, where you're taking 2 or 3 charts of accounts in your old system and migrating them into one account over in NetSuite. So some thought needs to be given, and you need to make sure that also that your accounts are clean. Do you know what's sitting in all of your balance sheet accounts? So really kind of scrubbing that data to get ready for your implementation. I would say, best case scenario, you've done that before you start the implementation process, because once you get the process underway, you want to be able to keep moving down the field.
Yeah, they say garbage in, garbage out. I think with NetSuite, garbage in, it's not really garbage out. It's like putting garbage in a blender and blending it up, and then it's everywhere, and it just pollutes the entire process. So
I
really,
think it can
really,
also become exponential.
exactly. Well, that's what happened. The blender without the top on it.
Right,
Maybe that'll be
right.
the
Visual. Right,
visual on
right,
that one.
right.
And I see it a lot of times, Susan, also that NetSuite is very good at the implementation process from a software standpoint. They're software engineers.
That's right.
And I find that from an accounting perspective, sometimes they're missing the mark a little bit. What do you find?
I think that's true. I think that the process that NetSuite has designed to get companies up and running on NetSuite is really good. They start by showing you what's out there, and then the next phase, they do exactly the same process, but they are having you drive the boat. You have to touch and feel your way around NetSuite. So it's the beginning of you learning. But the problem is that NetSuite has a lot of, I'll call them toggle switches, that you can kind of choose your own adventure. So you may want one company may want to go this way with how they're posting things, and another company may need to go a slightly different direction. And so there are all these switches that you choose along the way. And the NetSuite implementers know those switches, but they're not going to really guide you in making the decision and kind of telling you what happens if you go this way or this way. And that's where somebody who's experienced in using NetSuite from an accounting perspective can really be key to helping you make those decisions. Not making those decisions on your behalf, but kind of giving you the lay of the land in terms of which direction you're going to end up going or what's commonly used. And I just don't think the NetSuite implementers typically give you guidance on that. They just give you the choice.
Now, Susan, I'm moving off of QuickBooks. I'm going to NetSuite, and I love my accountant. And, although they haven't worked with NetSuite before, they say, look, it's like flying a plane, right? But we all know, yes, you might be a pilot in a Cessna. Now you're asking them to drive or fly a 747. Yeah, it's a plane, but it's a lot more difficult.
Exactly. And it's a lot more powerful. That's a great analogy, Thor, because the Cessna can get you from point A to point B. The 747 may be able to get you a longer distance, or it has the fuel to take you a longer distance. You might be able to fly higher. There are a lot of things that a 747 can do that a Cessna can't. And while the basic skills are there, the fundamental understanding of accounting is there. Knowing exactly what NetSuite's kind of doing in the background and the complexity of when you make an entry, it's just more complex. It just really is. I think there are a lot of accountants that can learn it, but there are a lot that are hesitant to learn it as well. So you really have to understand what your current accountant is able to do, willing to do, in order to decide what your path forward is going to be in terms of your NetSuite support.
And this is really not about watching a YouTube video over the weekend to learn how to use NetSuite. We traditionally were a QuickBooks accounting firm. We saw where the market was going. We jumped on the bandwagon years ago on NetSuite. You've gone through multiple certifications. What would you say the amount of training and learning that you did over the years to get the certifications in NetSuite that you did? How many hours were involved in that?
Well, I've had the advantage of just a lot of time in NetSuite. And so some of the tests really weren't a huge leap for me because I had the experience to go to kind of navigate what they were asking me. I don't know that somebody coming in and just sitting for 20 hours in front of a learning pass or YouTube videos, I don't know that they're going to be able to pass those certifications. A lot of it is, kind of hitting the wall with frustration. Like, I know I should be able to do X, and how am I going to get from here to there? There's a lot of great resources now about NetSuite, and AI is helping people be able to do more things in NetSuite. But when I started with NetSuite 7 or 8 years ago, there wasn't a lot of content out there. And so there was a lot of trial and error. And that's kind of my background and how I have learned. And most of my team, it's kind of the same thing. They're learning as they do the work, and now they have a lot of experience with NetSuite, so they're able to troubleshoot different scenarios.
But a key distinction there is everyone that has come on our team and has been hired onto our team already had extensive NetSuite knowledge.
Bring people on who already have the experience.
We always get clients calling in, or prospects, I should say, and it's, hey, we're going live in 2 weeks. We realize that our current accountant can't handle the transition. We need you to jump in. Talk about the lift involved, the timing. Everyone always underestimates the amount of time it's going to take to get this system up and running properly. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we talked a little bit about having your data ready. So if your data is not ready and you're given a 2-month timeline to get NetSuite up and running, what you can expect is that you're going to have 1 or 2 meetings a week with NetSuite, doing the configuration, doing the walkthroughs. Again, depending on which modules you're implementing on NetSuite. If you're just doing accounting, it can be a shorter timeline. If you're trying to do CRM, inventory, all of those other things, you've got a much bigger project ahead of you. But so if your data isn't ready, you've got to manage the fact that you've got 2 meetings a week, let's say, plus some homework in terms of making decisions. And then you've got the data scrubbing, right? So, and data preparation, because you also have to get all of your schedules ready to upload so that the NetSuite team can go ahead and bring your data into NetSuite. So you've got a lot of things outside of your normal responsibilities that you are managing. So that kind of leads me into talking about the timeline. And a lot of people have their eye on the prize of going live on the first of the month so that they have a nice, smooth cutover. And I would say that I deviate from that a little bit, because I think that if you aren't ready to go live, going live too early, it kind of goes back to that blender analogy. You've put everything in, but you're just, or you're trying to blend hot liquid, right? Sometimes it's better to blend liquid when it cools a little bit, because if it's hot, it goes everywhere. And you can't keep that lid on. And I feel like if you try and go live too early, that's the scenario you're in. So I think cutting over on the 5th of the month, it's really not a problem, especially because it allows you to close out your prior month. Most accountants aren't ready to cut over on the 1st of the month. They still have bank reconciliations to do, and you've got to determine your outstanding checks and your outstanding AR and your outstanding AP. So there's a lot of data that maybe isn't quite ready on the 1st that could be ready on the 5th. And that being said, even pausing a month and letting it slip a little bit to really have the data ready so that you don't have that situation where little flaws become really large flaws. So I think it's kind of twofold. There's the lift, but it's also really knowing whether you can make that timeline. And some people have an absolute like cutoff. They have to move for one reason or another. But when you're in that situation, you really need to look backwards to see, do you need to bring in another resource to help you get those things ready? We help a lot of our clients get historical balances, AP aging reports, ready to go. And I think that that helps a little bit with the lift. There's also testing involved. That's kind of the final stage before you go live. Is NetSuite presents you with a bunch of scenarios that you have to go through to kind of say, yep, we are ready to go. And that testing is best done by the people who are actually going to fill the jobs. The testing does two things. It does validate the system, which is super important. That goes back to all the switches that you've toggled on and off. Are you veering right? Are you veering left? And you want to make sure that you're getting the expected result. But the testing also does help determine if your resources have maybe the tools that they need to navigate through NetSuite. Have they been part of any training that you have provided, or the implementation process where you've done the walkthroughs? So it's important to go through that process and complete the scenarios that NetSuite has put forward for you.
Awesome. Well, that was at least 5, if not more.
Right, right.
And stay tuned for additional videos where we're going to be talking about the issues involved with moving to NetSuite, being in NetSuite, and everything NetSuite accounting.